Hey guys, let's talk nib holders. So there's a lot of different inking nib holders out there, but there's really a few that you just sort of need to be aware of and kind of pay attention to. The first and most classic is going to be this guy. This is the classic Speedball round nib holder. This is the one that I use for white inks, but they come with this just little plastic stick, and then I put these little foam handles on them because they're a little small and I don't grip them as tight that way. But it's just a plastic holder. Can't really get that out of there without a towel. Just a little plastic nib holder that holds, see that? It's got a hole in it. And the nib gets pressed down into there. These will wear out eventually. A couple different ways I have found that you can wear them out is while you're trying to wiggle one out. I've cracked them and broke them like this before. But really how they normally wear out is these just get worn. They either get rusted into there, or ink gets up in there and they get stuck, or they get so loose that they won't hold the nib anymore. They do wear out. They're cheap, they're light. A lot of people like them because they are cheap and because they are light. I find them a little too small, to be honest, and I find they're just not my favorite. I don't know, I went on a search for different options a while back and I've just found some things I like more than this. But this works, and I have a couple of these around and absolutely still use them. That is a Speedball. The nib is a 102. It'll fit the 108 and the 107, and I believe there's another one, but I can't remember whether these little round ones. These do not fit the Japanese nibs, or I should say the Japanese nib holders do not fit the 102 exactly. Sometimes you have to put a little bit of tape or something on it to stay snug in those. But yeah, that's the standard option for that. I think the next thing that I found that I really liked was I had heard about the Griff holder nib, which was made by a company called Griff Hold that did like Exacto blades and that kind of thing. And they had it was a writing pen nib holder. And in essence, it worked kind of like an Exacto knife, but it was flared at the end to allow the nib to space and all of that. And I was never able to find one, but I was able to find these cheap Exacto knife kits that I found at, I think, either Hobby Lobby or Amazon, something like that. But they came with a flange that had a hole in it, and that hole was meant for these burnishing tools that you would use for paper embossing and things like that. It was the perfect size for about the same size as a nib. So I was using one of these for a while as my nib holder, but it was light. It was too heavy on one end. Didn't really care for that. So then I found the same company by Excel, Excel Blades, makes a regular old Exacto blade. And that Exacto blade is ergonomic. And it kind of pushes a little bit far from the tip of the nib. And I found that if I took the holder out of this one, the little flange out of this one, and put it in the standard Exacto blade, I could then fit nibs in there. This one has a 108 nib in it, which is a softer nib. But these have actually been kind of my favorite. They're very comfortable. The little extra weight on the end works real well with how it sits ergonomically in your hand. You can still choke up on the nib like that if you need to, and then I tend to ink a little bit further away, a lot like that. Also by Excel, and this is one I haven't started inking with yet, but I'm really excited about this. This was just a tool that was just sold as a burnisher. The thing that this came with parts for, this was specifically what this was sold for. And it has that same style tip, but it is aluminum, and instead of the release mechanism being on the end here, it's actually up front, which means that the weight is actually balanced more at your fingers. The aluminum makes it very, very light. And this thing is pretty indestructible. I like that. This is actually just a little holder that the burnishing tool tips came in, but once I put the foam piece on there, it worked perfectly for that. And this is gonna be probably my go-to for the most part for a while. This is for a larger nib holder. This would be for the bowl style nibs. I don't use these much, but they are actually kind of nice. You can get a nice line with them. But it's got a standard full foam grip. This is a lightweight wood. It's made by Kohinoor that makes repeatographs and ultra draw ink and all of that. And then this little rubber thing is actually just a little rubber handle from a paintbrush. I think it was like a cheap kids paintbrush like pack that I got at Michael's. The paintbrush wore out, and I put this on my nib holder to kind of be able to give it a little bit of a spin or a flare and step back on it. I really like that on there. It makes it really comfortable. And then my last one, and maybe not my favorite, but there are things I like about this. This is, again, by Kohinoor. This is actually a 3.8 millimeter lead holder. And the pencil lead that it comes with is like an HB lead, and it's this really thick, big round lead, which actually works well for drawing with. But I like it because it has a clutch release on a button. I will say that it is, because it is a 3.8 versus a 3 millimeter, it does not clutch as tight as I would want. So I usually put a piece of tape on there. And now I will say this is the thing I like most about this particular thing, or this particular holder. I can push the pen nib much further into the holder so that I can get a much closer and more tight small line. I can get choke up on it and have a little more control, whereas the other holders, very intentionally, I tend to hold back further for making lines. Now that helps me work from my elbow as opposed to my wrist a lot more. But when I'm doing like detail work or faces, things like that, I want to be choked up and a little bit further up on the tool. And I like that this floats back into the holder a little bit better. Beyond that, those are the nib holders I'm using. If you have anything that you like or that you use, I have seen stuff by Ink Slinger, which I'm very curious about. I just don't have $80 to drop on a nib holder. A few other things, but really I started all of this because I was looking for one of the Grifold holders, and that company has gone out of business. So I'm trying to find replacements that I think work, and I think I found a few really good options. You guys let me know what you think, and I will put some links below to the products that I found here, and maybe ways, because a couple of them you'll have to take the flare out from the middle of and put it into the other ergonomic holders if that's the way you want to go, and I think that works really well, but it does require you buy two different products, both at about 10 or 12 bucks each. This guy was only 13 bucks and does exactly what I want it to do on both sides. It's just not the ergonomic grip. I have options of holders and things I can put on there to kind of give it more of that feel, but that's really what the difference. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys checking this out. We'll go over another one over brushes and maybe inks and papers, just kind of do a few different videos on these. But these are definitely the tools that I'm using most often these days. I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.